And certainly when we die, what's put across is the possibility that we just enter another dream, which we'll call a new life. And this is what we're being. This is the story we're caught up in at the moment. The story of Lila, who when her husband died, she asked the goddess Sarasvati to keep his spirit in the palace, which is what happened. Although that spirit took on a new life, became another king, and that king lived through his life, and he eventually dies as well. He dies in battle. And as she's visiting the king who was her husband previously, she meets his wife, who's also Lila. And this Lila addresses the goddess Sarasvati. The second Lila said to Sarasvati, "O divinity, I used to worship Sarasvati, and she used to appear to me in my dreams. You look exactly like her. I presume that you are Sarasvati. I humbly beg of you to grant me a boon. When my husband dies on the battlefield, may I accompany him to whichever realm he goes, in this very body of mine." So it's quite a similar boon to the one that the first Lila was granted. Sarasvati replied, "O dear lady, you have worshipped me for a long time with intense devotion. Therefore I grant you the boon sought by you." The first Lila thereupon said to Sarasvati, "Truly your words never fail. Your wish always comes true. Pray tell me why you did not allow me to travel from one plane of consciousness to another with the same body." One of these rather strange questions that crop up in the Yoga Vasistha. I'm not sure what Lila's getting at here. She's actually in what we might call, it was called here her ethereal body. I think we might call that her astral body. She's actually sitting in meditation in the palace of her first husband, near his corpse. And she's been travelling to his next incarnation. And she's at the end of his next incarnation. So I suppose she's asking, why didn't she go there in her physical body? Sarasvati replied, "My dear Lila, I do not really do anything to anyone. Every jiva," that's every individualized psyche, "every jiva earns its own state by its own deeds. I am merely the deity presiding over the intelligence of every being. I am the power of its consciousness and its life force. Whatever form the energy of the living being takes within itself, that alone comes to fruition in course of time. You longed for liberation and you obtained it. You may consider it the fruit of your austerity or worship of the deity, but it is consciousness alone that bestows the fruit upon you, even as the fruit that seems to fall from the sky really falls from the tree." So I'm not sure this is much of an answer. She's just saying what happens, which is fair enough actually. On the one hand, Saraswati is saying she doesn't do anything. On the other hand, she is the power of consciousness, which could be applied to us as well. I think we can just understand this. Everything happens as it happens, and I think one of the things about the Yoga Vasistha is it's putting across this truth that everything is simply consciousness, but at the same time it's trying to come to terms with the cultural and metaphysical physical context of Hinduism. Hinduism's got so many teachings to do with morality and other kinds of yoga, with medicine, And it's trying to understand all these things in the light of the Advaita teaching, the teaching of non-duality. So I think that's where some of these strange questions come from. And I suppose we should try and be aware of attempts to justify the Hindu context. Our concern is really with the underlying message that everything is consciousness, and it's only consciousness that is doing anything, and we get caught up with the objects of consciousness. Our attention gets caught up in its own constructs, and the message is to bring the attention back to awareness of its own nature. Vasistha continued. As they were talking among themselves like this, the king Viduratha ascended his resplendent chariot and proceeded to the battlefront. Viduratha is Lila's husband in his latest incarnation. Unfortunately, he had not assessed the relative strength of his and the enemy's forces right up to the moment he actually entered into the enemy ranks. The two Lilas, Sarasvati, as also the princess who had received the blessings of Sarasvati, were watching the terrible war from their apartment in the palace. The sky was crowded with the missiles from both the armies. The battle cries of the warriors were heard everywhere. There was a pall of smoke and dust over the entire city. Even as the king Viduratha entered the ranks of the enemy, there was an intense tut-tut sound of intense crossfire. As the missiles collided, there were sounds like chut-chut, tuk-tuk, jun-jun. So we've got a full-fledged battle going on with all sorts of occult missiles being used.